20s think they're invincible. I know I certainly did. I think I was a bit, to be honest. But actually, the truth is, in your 20s, you're more vulnerable than ever. If someone makes a financial mistake at this point in their life, it will send shockwaves through their entire future. Each of these mistakes is very different, so it's really, really important that you watch this video until the end. Otherwise, you could fall victim to one of them. So smash that like button. All right, done that? Let's jump straight in. Number one is not taking advantage of your free time. Now, in your early 20s, you are incredibly rich in one way. You've got bundles and bundles of time. You can do so many things to turn your spare time into cash. And if all you're doing is wasting your time, then all that potential income is just slipping through your fingers. This is also the ideal time to invest in yourself and build your skills. I used to use my spare time in my 20s sketching model planes, and this has led me to having them manufactured and selling them all around the world. In fact, one of my biggest designs is the biggest selling RC aircraft in the UK. The original design for this was sketched in a classroom while I was being bored by the geography teacher. I remember him well, Mr. Woolard. So developing those skills from an early age has served me very, very well. Number two, trying to keep up with your friends. Everyone has that one friend that always seems to have the nicer car, the nicer house, and sometimes the hotter partner. Let me tell you a secret, all right? The majority of people are faking it anyway. As of 2020, the average American household had a credit card debt of over $5,700. This is astonishing, as it means the friends you're actually trying to keep up with are probably more in debt than you are. Having access to so much easy credit allows people to rewrite reality. At the end of the day, friends that need impressing are not true friends. Real friends are the people that love you no matter what. They stick by you through your troubles and are there for you when you need them. They are the people who couldn't care less what you spend your money on. Number three, over drinking and partying. When you're out drinking, it's easy to get caught up in the moment and spend a lot more money than you usually would. Now, this is most people's kryptonite. It's one of the things that keeps many people broke and, of course, unable then to invest. I'm not saying that going out and enjoying yourself is wrong, as you have to do what makes you happy. The key takeaway from this is everything is great, but in moderation. You may think that saving a few dollars here and there won't make a difference, but your dollar is worth so much more when you're younger. By investing it instead of spending it on something you really didn't want anyway, it's going to be worth dramatically more in 20 years' time. Number four is putting off retirement investing. When you're in your 20s, retirement seems like a lifetime away. Many people put off investing in their retirement until they're about 45 or 50 years of age because of many, many excuses. They've got a mortgage to pay, they've got a college fund to save for, and of course there's holidays. These lost years can cost you very, very dear. So let me explain. If you invested $100 a month for 30 years at 7% annual return, you would have $116,945 set aside in your retirement fund. And this can continue to grow until the point you decide to retire. But if you put off investing in your retirement, let's say 10 years, and you start investing the same amount for a 20-year period, wait for it, you're only going to have $50,000 in your retirement fund. Yes, it can grow, but you're starting from such a low base, just 50K. $50,000 is a huge amount of money just to lose. And the reality is that $50,000 would have only cost you $12,000, so lots of free money. I was very lucky. My mentor advised me to save and invest in a pension from the age of 18. I've always been told that you should put at least, not a minimum of at least 10% of everything you earn, and it's given me the ability to use that money in lots of different investment opportunities, such as business, real estate, and also stocks and shares. Even Einstein said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Number five is not having a backup fund. Now, over 60% of millennials wouldn't be able to cover a $1,000 emergency. That's 60% wouldn't have enough money for a minor emergency. Now, I know I bang on about this, and I do bang on about it a lot of the time, about having a backup fund, but that's because it's super important. I learned it the hard way. When I was 19, I purchased a car that I needed a loan to buy. The engine in it lasted me about a month before it blew up isn't something they teach in school. Come to think of it, it'd have been pretty awesome if they had. Because of this lack of knowledge, it seems pretty scary for most beginners to get started in investing. But in today's video, I'm going to simplify the whole process. Investing my money allowed me to become a multi-millionaire, and guess what I started with? That's right, $100. Well, probably less than that, to be honest. I'm not saying becoming rich is easy, but by taking calculated risks, you'll be able to grow your wealth over time. I understand that everyone has a different risk tolerance, so today I'm going to be revealing how to invest for beginners with $100. And as we go through the video, the risk is going to increase, but remember, as the risk goes up, so does the potential reward. I'll also be putting my money where my mouth is and investing $100 into each one of these options so you can see exactly how to do it. I'm just about to invest in something I never thought I'd actually do. Here goes. When someone asks me how they should invest $100, I usually say invest in yourself. You can do this by buying books and improving your skills, but assuming you've already done this, now we're going to be talking about the specific places you can actually put your money. Now, I'm a businessman, I'm not a financial advisor. These are just some of the ways I've invested my money over the years, and they've worked for me. You can also sit back and relax because I'm not going to try and sell you anything at the end. Just remember, if you enjoyed the video, then smash that like button because it really helps push this video out to more people. And also consider subscribing if you want to grow your wealth. The first investment is a high interest savings account. This is a 1 out of 10 on the risk scale, so the lowest possible risk that you can have. Nowadays, it's extremely hard to find any savings account that will pay a substantial amount of interest, but that's not the main reason it's on the list. By putting your money into a savings account, you're actually starting to create what I like to call an emergency fund, which I believe everyone should have. This is money that you can access if something unexpected comes up, and it's extremely low risk, and by having money on hand you can avoid getting into debt and having to pay crazy fees back. I remember when I bought my first apartment, I had a minor crisis after about 2 months as the hot water system went wrong and it needed replacing. Because of my emergency fund, it saved me over $200 as I didn't have to take out a payday loan. When you leave your money in the bank, it slowly loses its value, so when I am looking for the best savings account to combat this, I look for 2 things. The first, of course, is a good interest rate, which depends on the economy mostly. The second thing is having the ability to access my money instantly. Some banks that are really worth looking at and consistently have a good rate of interest are Ally Bank, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, and Citibank. I currently have an account with Marcus by Goldman Sachs, and their interest rate is 0.7%, which isn't very high, but is currently one of the best available. So there we go, nice and easy. $100 deposited into my savings account. Now for gold, often referred to as a safe haven. I'll give this also a 2 out of 10 on the risk scale. Did you know that since the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913, the US dollar has lost 95% of its value? So you're actually only left with 5% of its original purchasing power. So if you want to stop your money losing value, then maybe gold is for you. If you had a $100 nugget of gold in the year 2000, it would now be worth approximately $580. The piece of gold hasn't actually changed in size. It's still the same piece of metal, but what has actually changed is the value of your dollar and how much gold you can buy with it. Gold was actually our original currency used by our forefathers. I remember those days well. It's perfect as it can't be manufactured and it lasts for thousands and thousands of years. So if you've ever watched Gold Rush on TV, you'll know how hard it is to actually mine this stuff out of the ground. Now you may be wondering, if it's so safe, why have I given it a 2 out of 10 on the risk scale? It all comes down to opportunity cost. You have to ask yourself if you really want to just protect your $100 against inflation, or if you want to invest it in other opportunities which could make it grow a lot quicker. If you invest in gold, then you would be missing out on these potential profits, making it a little bit risky. I would say that this is the perfect investment if you have a lot of money already and all you want to do is just protect it. There are 2 different ways that you can invest in gold. The first way would be to actually buy physical gold, but if I bought jewelry, I don't know, gold bars, coins and that sort of thing, I'd probably be paying too much because the person selling it would want to make a profit, which means I would be paying more than the true value of the gold itself. The alternative is to invest in gold within a broker app like Robinhood in the USA or Trading 212 in the UK. Then you're able to buy gold at its true value and have the option to sell much quicker. In the USA, I would look for the GLD ETF on Robinhood, which is one of the largest gold ETFs in the world. As of June 2020, they hold over 36.49 million ounces of gold in vaults all around the world. As I'm currently in the UK, I'm going to invest using Trading 212 in a similar share. And with just a click of a button, there you go. I'm now Mr. Goldman. If that doesn't sound exciting enough for you, then why don't you try a simple low-cost index fund? I'll give this a 3 out of 10 on the risk scale. If you invested just $100 per month into an index fund with a 7% annual return, then after 30 years, you'd have $123,000. That's the power of compound interest. You can do all of this without having any knowledge of the stock market. I remember when Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, placed $1 million bet that a simple S&P 500 index fund would outperform a professionally picked portfolio of hedge funds over a 10-year period. Now, this contest wrapped up in 2017 and the results were made public. Warren Buffett had actually won $1 million bet, which really shows the power of index funds and that the everyday person can take on the pros with little to no knowledge. Imagine an index fund is like a bag of Haribo gummies. The machine in the factory puts a range of the most popular candy into one bag, so you can enjoy the best of the best without having to pick and buy each and every one individually. Now, just replace the candy with companies. That's what an index fund is. You can buy your own selection bag of the most popular companies in the world, such as Apple, Microsoft, Amazon and Facebook, and your money is split between all of them. Now let's go back to the Haribos. Imagine you left these on the side and they're open for a few days or so. They'd go hard and they certainly wouldn't taste as good, would they? But by putting them in a container, you can stop that from happening. This is very much like index funds, as if you leave them unprotected, the government will start taxing you on the profits you make. But you can protect them with a sort of container like this, which is known as different things in different countries. In America, it's called a Roth IRA, and in the UK, it's an ISA. These containers allow you to protect your money after tax, and then any profits you make are yours to keep. But because they're so good and they're so powerful, there's a cap on how much you're allowed to invest each year. So if I was you, I would take full advantage as soon as possible and max out your allowance. There are more in-depth strategies you can use, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be investing $100 into an S&P 500 index fund, which over the last 20 years has an average yearly return of 7%. Drop a like if you'd like a full video covering this topic, because there's so much on this we could talk about.
But Mark, $100 isn't enough, as the S&P 500 is over $3,000 a share.
Well, you don't actually have to buy a full share to invest. My favourite brokers are Fidelity, Charles Schwab and Vanguard. So if we head over to Vanguard's website now and we find the S&P 500, here you can see what companies are in the index fund, so you can buy the right one. So all you have to do is create an account. I already have one, and deposit some money and then click. There you go, job done. The fourth way to invest is in a real estate investment trust, otherwise known as a REIT. I'll also give this a 3 out of 10 on the risk scale. Now imagine your friend collected $100 from 3,000 people. He will have $300,000. Then he takes this money and he buys a property. He rents it out and splits it with all 3,000 people that helped him buy the property, which helps them start generating some of that sweet passive income. That's the basic way of explaining a REIT. It lets everyone benefit from investing in income producing properties without actually buying one. Think of it like buying a small share in a property. Let's say you own the front door, someone else owns the windows, and a few other people own all the bricks. But altogether, you own the property. Equity REITs own things like offices, shopping centres, apartments, hotels, and much more, and they get their income through the rent. By law, they have to pass on 90% of all profits to the investor, like a dividend. However, they're taxed a little differently. The cool thing is that at the start of 2019, the 10-year average return for REIT ETFs did better than the S&P 500, with an average return of 10%. If you're in the USA, by investing in the VGSLX by Vanguard, you can average a 12% return, which beats the average real estate investor. How awesome's that? As I'm in the UK, I'm going to use the Trading 212 website to put $100 into a similar REIT. It has high global diversification, meaning I can invest in all the up and coming property markets around the world. The next option is buying and selling items. The risk on this really depends on how good you are at finding great deals, but I'll give this a 4 out of 10 on the risk scale. The good thing about doing this is that you can buy and sell something that you're interested in and have knowledge about, which can lead to bigger possible returns. Now I'm going to invest my $100 in either pre-owned radio control model gear or golf equipment. Both of these I've got an interest in, so I should have a reasonable idea of what each item is worth. Pokemon cards would be a great area to have some expertise in, as their value at the moment is skyrocketing. Logan Paul just bought a Charizard card for over $150,000. How mad is that? So I've been on Facebook Marketplace, as most people have access to that platform, and I found myself a model engine that I'm going to go and try and buy. It's up for £75, which is approximately $100 US. We've sent a few messages back and forth, and I'm going to go and have a look at the item now. Hello there, I've come about the engine.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh, in the box as well. Cool, that's good.
That is all boxed.
Cool, that looks right. So, would you take 70 for it?
No, I've got to have 75. All in its box, in good condition.
Can you do a bit better?
I'll tell you what I can do. There you go. I'll throw that in.
Really?
That's what it came out of, 75 quid.
That's a deal.
Okay, we'll do
There you
that.
go, I'll give you 75 quid.
Lovely,
there you
thank
go.
you very much.
We're videoing this for our YouTube channel, do you mind?
No, that's fine.
All right then,
Okay,
see you again.
Thanks
a lot, thanks for that. So I've done a listing on eBay for the model engine, and the model plane I'm going to actually advertise on a specialised website for model flying, as I'm sure I'll be then selling to the right people and hoping for big profits. Now we're starting to get serious. It's time for individual stocks. This gets a 6.5 out of 10 on the risk scale. There's a certain amount of risk that comes with investing in individual stocks, but if you pick your companies well, then it can be really exciting, as there's the potential to make a lot of money. During the dot-com boom back in 1995, I was really lucky to pick a few great stocks, which I cashed in, and I made a lot of money in a very short period of time. When the bubble burst, some of the companies I'd held on to, which had cost me very little, went completely out of business. Luck and timing can be a very crucial part of stock investing. I picked these stocks using what's called fundamental analysis, which means I looked at the business financial statements, their market, and also the leadership of their companies. Back then this was a lot of work, but now it's easily found out on Yahoo Finance. A while ago I read an article about an experiment where they simulated 100 monkeys throwing darts like this at the financial pages of a newspaper. The stocks the monkeys picked on average outperformed the so-called smartest hedge fund managers on Wall Street. So for this video I thought it'd be fun to put this theory to the test. I don't have a monkey, so I thought I'd have to do. So I'm going to throw a dart at the board, and as you can see I randomly selected 20 different stocks, and wherever the dart lands that's what I'm going to invest in. Now I've just got to put on a blindfold. Okay, here we go.
Oh, you hit it.
Right, let's see what we got. And we've gone into Samsung. Right, so I'm going to jump straight onto my brokerage account and set an order for Samsung. If you want to invest your $100 in individual stock, then Webull are currently giving away 3 free stocks for a limited time when you deposit $100 into your account. I'll just leave the link in the description if you want to pick up those free stocks. So now we're going to be moving into the realm of gambling and speculation rather than investing. Number 7 is cryptocurrency. This is a 9 out of 10 on the risk scale. So you've probably heard of Bitcoin. This is currently the most popular type of crypto. If you'd have bought need to think a little bit differently from everyone else. I mean, most people use their phones as a distraction, endlessly scrolling TikTok, killing their brain cells and becoming a slave to the system. This means that not only does using your phone correctly give you an advantage, it's actually putting others at a disadvantage. Okay then, but how do I use it correctly? Well, in order to cash in, I've put together 8 different tips so that you can spot opportunities while you're young and use the tools that you have at your disposal. Tip 1, meditation. Only joking. I'm not going to make some boring video about meditation and journaling. Let's be real, that's not going to make you a millionaire. But what will is. Tip 1, realising there's so much fucking money out there. You have to really understand this, because if you don't, the harsh reality is you're going nowhere. You'll be one of those middle-aged people that never made it. You know, the ones that blame everything on everyone for their misfortune. Oh, it's the government. Oh, it's the blooming recession. You've got to face up to what's going on instead of wasting your early years wrapped up in excuses. But that's not you, and it certainly wasn't me. Even as a teenager, I knew that money was everywhere. I would always see people with cash on their hip, nice cars and luxury homes. Instead of being angry about what other people had, I understood that there was enough wealth out there for me, and instead of hating on the rich and wealthy, I decided to learn from them. Hanging out with my mentor, a guy called Dave Monk, got me involved in a lot of high-level conversations, and seeing how the guys with money acted was so valuable. Believing there is so much money out there will really help you to focus on your goals and take responsibility for your own success. Just think, someone owns all of these buildings, and thinking like this can also allow you to celebrate the success of others and learn from their achievements rather than feeling threatened by them. You really don't have to reinvent the wheel to get rich. All you need to do is position yourself somewhere money is flowing. Just think how crypto was a huge craze in 2021 and how many people made fortunes, not by investing in it, but by launching their own projects. They didn't create the technology of crypto. However, they did notice the money pumping into the space and benefited from it. Sadly, most people don't realize that there's lots of money out there waiting to be claimed, and therefore will never spot these kinds of opportunities. Many even feel like they have to be really lucky or come up with a completely new business idea. In reality, it's so much more simple than that. Successful people often just identify a business that has worked really well in the past and then add their own unique twist to it. Think Uber. I mean, taxis have been around for years. It took Uber just to make it easier and cheaper for everyone to use them. Everything stems back to the core belief that money is everywhere, and once you let go of the idea that money is scarce, everything changes. Tip 2, don't focus on saving. This is the opposite to what many of these online gurus will tell you, but honestly, most of them have made their money the slow way. Believe it or not, I'm actually the opposite. Even though I'm old and grey, I was a millionaire in my 20s and I've lived a fantastic life and I haven't deprived myself of much. I mean, in my life, I've travelled to almost every country on the planet, become a pilot, was a champion race car driver, competed for my country in world championships, and built multi-million-dollar businesses. Have I been silly with my money? No, but I have used it strategically and had lots of fun along the way. When online gurus talk about investing $50 per week from the age of 16 into the S&P 500 at an average return of 7% per year, leading to you having over $1 million by the age of 65, I think they believe this actually excites people. Newsflash, it doesn't. But what should excite you is the free stock worth between $3,000 and $1,000 at public.com are currently giving you once you sign up and fund your account. I'll leave that link down below if you want to pick that up. Most people want to enjoy their money while they're young, just like I did. Don't get me wrong, of course it's very important to start investing small amounts when you're young and not leaving it until the last minute. But ideally, this should be money you don't even notice leaving your bank account and not your lifelong plan to become a millionaire. Investing all of your baby money into the stock market or something you can't control is the worst move that you can make, as it locks up all of your money for testing out side hustles and business ideas. Those are the real ways to make big money. Now, having an emergency fund of 6 months living expenses does take the edge off, and it allows you to take calculated risk without worrying too much. So I'm not fully against saving, I'm just against hoarding cash, as I've never known anyone to make a lot of money in their younger years when they take this approach. So the truth of this lies somewhere in the middle. Use both the fast and the slow lanes. Don't be a prolific saver that denies themselves a Starbucks coffee if that's what makes you happy. If you put savings over small things that make your life more enjoyable, then you are giving your money too much power over you. But equally, don't go splashing your cash on pointless things and leave yourself with nothing to invest in your future. Pick what matters most to you and use your money strategically. Tip 3, quit drinking. Look, I get it. When you're young, drinking is almost a rite of passage. But if you follow what most people do, then you get what most people have. Nothing. As a senior guy, I can tell you from experience, as you get older, you don't have as much energy. Honestly, I'd give up all my money to have a young body again. It's your greatest asset, and if that doesn't illustrate how valuable it is, then nothing will. I say this because most people waste years of their life drinking. This makes zero sense to me, as alcohol is a depressant. Why numb your brain and your body when it's at its peak performance? Personally, I've never been much of a drinker. I realised early on that having the balls to say no gave people a lot more respect for me, and I found enjoyment in other much more productive hobbies like golf. I know a lot of people will say they just want to have fun, and I get that, but first fix the money issue. Get as much of it as you can, and then you can drink as much as you want, but you'll probably find you still want to keep growing your wealth. Once you realise how much fun it is having money and the freedom it gives you, you'll unlock a whole new level to life. Drinking is just an expensive way to distract yourself from the bigger picture whilst losing time, and on top of that, how can we forget the best part? Feeling terrible the next day. What better way to hold you back from your dreams? Once I'd achieved my goals, I loosened the reins a little and have the odd cold beer now and then, but rarely do I have more than one or two. Yeah, no more than two, I fall over. Tip 4, buy a luxury watch. You might be thinking, why do I need a luxury watch in the 21st century when I can just check the time on my phone? I used to think the exact same thing. I've never been materialistic, which led me to overlooking watches, which now, knowing what I know, was a mistake. There are three main things a luxury watch can do for you. Firstly, it can spark conversations with other successful and wealthy individuals. This could lead to valuable networking opportunities and potential business partnerships. Another great way to chat with like-minded people is joining the free Strike It Big Discord group. I'll leave a link in the description below. Secondly, many luxury watches are considered valuable assets that can appreciate over time. If you invest in a high quality watch, it could potentially provide a solid return on investment. As with any investment, it's important to do your research and choose a luxury watch that has a good chance of appreciating in value over time. As a general rule, still Rolex watches reliably hold or appreciate in value. This includes in particular the GMT Master 2 with its famous two-coloured bezel, the Cosmograph Daytona, and the ever popular Submariner. Thirdly, they can be a great way to transport your wealth across borders. Now, technically, you do have to declare that you're bringing these into a different country. However, I bet the majority of people don't do this. If you entered another country with a wad of cash, then they'd probably ask you some questions. But I'm willing to bet that if you entered the same country with $1 million worth of watches, they wouldn't bat an eyelid. Just be careful where you wear these watches, as they're also very easy to steal. You have to learn to move in a different way. Don't get cocky and think you're untouchable, as someone is bound to pull up on a motorbike and take your watch from you. Trust me, luxury watches are not something to be overlooked, and even if the price goes down, you never really lose all of your money, and the status is worth it. Unlike Lambos, it's also getting progressively harder to buy a nice watch at retail price. If I'd started investing in watches earlier, I'd be sitting on a whole lot of equity. So building a good relationship with an authorized dealer while you're young is what future millionaires should be doing. Tip 5. Destroy your ego. There are so many arrogant people out there that think they know everything. They aren't interested in learning, even when someone more successful than them is spelling out the correct way of doing things. I mean, I was watching Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares the other day, and these restaurant owners were in dire need of help. Their business was failing, and they called in Gordon to turn their luck around. He came into their restaurant and tried to do exactly that, but their egos were so big that they couldn't take anything on board. It's actually shocking how stubborn some people are. Of course, be proud of what you do. However, you need to be able to separate pride from your ego. Take some time to self-reflect. Really go into the depth of your weaknesses and form a strategic plan of how to improve them. There are thousands of YouTube videos where experts teach you what you need to know for free. For example, if communication is a weak spot, then there are videos on public speaking and storytelling that you can take full advantage of. Now, learning high-value skills does more than just paying the bills. They compound into every aspect of your business and social life. I used to find what they taught in school to be boring and nonsensical. With my goals and vision, it just didn't make sense for me to waste my time learning about algebra and other things. So I went out and bought my own books about business. I used all my free time to teach myself all the basics of how to start and run a company. I then combined everything I learnt with my passion for RC models and started my own company, which went on to make millions and make me the man I am today. Tip 6, build a credit score. If you haven't got a trust fund, then you're going to need to leverage good debt in order to become a millionaire at a young age. And without a good credit score, that's going to be near impossible. I was told when I was younger this famous saying, never a borrower or a lender be, which is completely wrong. I have a feeling this was made up by powerful people years ago to stop you leveraging your way to success. Borrowing money can be one of the best ways to elevate yourself past your born class status. But due to my fear of debt, I never really took advantage of it. This is a personal regret of mine, and I wish I'd borrowed more when I was younger. It really could have helped me leverage my wealth much faster. Now, this isn't for everyone and takes a strong, clear mind to manage, but can work extremely well if done correctly. A credit score is basically a trust and reliability rating used by banks to judge the risk of lending you money. Think of it like this. If every time your mate lends you $5 and you give it back when or before you said you would, then there's a much bigger chance that your mate's going to lend you $100 if you ever need it, because he can trust you. A good credit score is priceless. My boss asked if someone wanted to help install a staircase. When we got to the house, I was shocked. He had it all: granite countertops, Persian rugs, and a collection of supercars. I'd look out the window and see the owner relaxing or practicing his golf swing. When I talked to him, he only chatted about his personal hobbies and never his businesses. I asked him, what's the secret to your success? He tapped me on the shoulder and said, Mark, if you can't make money while you sleep, you'll work until you die. This is now known in the modern day as passive income. That was the moment I decided I needed to join the top 1% of men. I'd like to retread my journey with you today. It's very clearly broken into 5 different stages, just like a video game, and at each individual stage I learned something imperative to my future success. You'll learn what I focused on as a hard-nosed businessman, what I obsessed about in the world of investing, and most importantly, the many mistakes I made along the way that have made me the successful person I am today. Stage 1, the awakening. This is when I went from zero to $20,000. My journey started as I emerged from my mother's womb, and my first words were, which stock should I buy? Just kidding. Like most people, I was pretty clueless about financial education as a kid, but I had the spirit of hustle in me. One of my earliest memories of entrepreneurship goes back to when I was selling fish door to door. Just imagine wiping the sleep dust out of your eyes at 4 in the morning, heading down to a freezing pier and sitting for hours until you'd caught enough mackerel to sell for a profit. Not only that, but grabbing a slimy fish from a bag, ringing a doorbell, looking a person straight in the eye and pitching to them. This built up my confidence and sales skills, 2 of the earliest skills I needed to learn to be successful. As I earned, I soon found that any money I made wasn't really mine. Instead, it would go to places like McDonald's and the girl I happened to be dating. I always seemed to have just enough. This is called lifestyle inflation, the tendency to spend more as you make more. Whatever you earn, it becomes your new baseline, and that's the trap. But being a car fanatic, I've always dreamed of owning a Ferrari. I felt as if they sent such a strong signal to others that you've made it. I'd often speak to my friend Paul, who worked as a valet parking cars for the rich and famous. He once told me something that changed my perspective on luxuries. He said, when people would drive up to the hotel in their Ferraris, they would watch me gawk and love every moment of it. I'm sure they felt admired, important, even respected. But actually, you know what, Mark? I didn't care about them or even notice them. Instead, I thought, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. And I wonder how many people buy these cars without realizing that people rarely give the driver a moment's thought. I learned that no one would be as impressed with my possessions and luxuries as much as me. People want to be respected and admired by others, but competence, intelligence, and kindness will bring you so much more respect than horsepower ever will. With all the information out there on the internet about how to make money or get rich quick, it can be hard to separate the truth from the marketing. Internet gurus have been getting wealthy for the past decade, telling other people how they can get rich, and there's a whole industry out there based on fantasy. But the truth is, wealth is not always what you see, but what you don't see. I decided instead I'd quietly follow my own path to wealth. But in order to do this, I needed a budget. A budget is knowing where your money will go versus where it went. Little by little, and for the first time, I started seeing my savings account go up. I started building an emergency fund, basically money for a rainy day. I didn't know exactly when or why it would rain, only that one day it would. One day, my boss approached me and ordered me to start making wooden trash cans. I made trash can after trash can. The hours would just crawl by so slowly. I went to my boss and asked him how long I'd have to keep doing this. Until the orders stopped coming in, which is probably never, he said, and I felt so deflated. Although I was saving money, I didn't feel passionate about what I was doing, but I wasn't thinking big enough. After all, I didn't care about luxuries, so why would I need more money? Then it hit me. I realised that control over your time is the greatest thing money can buy. If I had passive income, I could spend my time doing the things I really loved. The problem is, it takes a lot of time or money to start making enough passive income to become financially free. We spend thousands of hours every year working in the pursuit of money, so I asked myself, what was I truly passionate about? I had a burning passion for radio control models, and I noticed many people in this industry were making a lot of mistakes. I saw the true potential and the ways that I could improve on what had come before me. I once read in a book that if you could identify a problem and you had a better way of doing things, you could turn it into a business. Stage 2, the hustle. This is when I went from $20,000 to $100,000. So I got to work. I was so excited about my business plans that I shared them with a close friend and confidant, and to my shock, the unimaginable happened. He stole my idea and set up my entire business for himself. But before I get into that, first I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Public.com. Let's be honest, 2022 has been a pretty volatile year for the stock market, and that's exactly why our long-term sponsor, Public.com, wants to help you become a better investor. On Public, you can invest in individual stocks as well as ETFs, all the while learning from notable investors, analysts and top CEOs with their optional social features and town halls. My favourite thing about Public is they don't participate in payment for order flow by selling your trades to market makers, meaning they have no reason to incentivise you to trade more than necessary, like some other platforms do. On Public, you can invest, learn and see what top investors are doing all in one place. And the best part is, for a limited time, you can get a free start worth between $3,000 and $1,000 with the link down below in the description. Anyway, back to the story. The reality is that I needed some money to pursue my dream, but my savings just weren't enough. I wasn't about to give up. I drew up a business plan, went to the bank and applied for my first loan. It wasn't easy and I had to visit multiple banks. However, eventually I secured the money I needed. While some people earn their wealth investing in the stock market, I reinvested the earnings from my businesses to open more stores and even buy back my original idea from my old friend. I started to know more and more people in the business world. A lot of these individuals became my mentors and would teach me things like how to build a business that scales, how to improve sales, and how to manage people. As my income grew and I solved problems, I was not only growing my net worth, but becoming a top 1% man as well. As the good times continued, I increasingly bet on them continuing, which led to one of my most significant life crashes and moments of despair. I remember it like it was yesterday, walking into the shop that I had initially started to give my father a job in his later years, and instead of being greeted by the magical emporium filled with all the toys that I could have only dreamed of having as a kid, I was met with a smashed roof, empty shelves and my products laying broken, thrown across the floor. This hit me so hard that the memory has been seared into my subconscious, and I sometimes still see it when I close my eyes. You may think, it's all right, Mark, I know you, I bet you had insurance, everything was okay and you bounced back. Well, in fact, I'd grown so fast and I was making so much money that not everything was correctly structured within my business. Although we were insured, I'd forgotten to update it with all the new stock that we'd acquired since the opening of the store. But the disaster doesn't stop there. It gets even worse. I got a phone call a few days later and one of my staff informed me that another 2 locations had been hit. Luckily, one of these attempts was unsuccessful on my flagship store as they couldn't break through the door. However, they'd driven a truck straight through the side of the store that was responsible for serving the entirety of London, and the damage was horrendous, let alone the stock that we lost. That's when I learned about the balance between risk and reward. See, making money requires taking risks, operating quickly and putting yourself out there. But keeping money requires the opposite. It requires humility and fear that what you've made can be taken away from you just like that. Once you lose 95% of your money, you have to gain 1,900% just to get back to where you started. Taking too much risk can bury you so deep in a hole, it can be nearly impossible to get out of. I even started to move my operations online to adapt to the changing times. Stage 3, the trap. This is when I went from $100,000 to $1 million. I realized that one of the biggest problems people face is when they turn their passion into a vehicle to accumulate money. They are now reliant on it to fund their lifestyle, leading to their passion becoming their prison. I mean, the biggest bottleneck in my business was actually the business owner, me. As the business got bigger and as we tried to move it online, so did the number of problems, complaints, and things to worry about.
Black Monday.
They're calling it the Monday Massacre.
Wall Street had its biggest one-day drop in history.
The results of the decline will hit millions of people.
Up until this point, your friends probably thought you were some kind of genius, but now they're urging you to sell. But you ignore them, and slowly but surely the market recovers until
the Nasdaq index in freefall, down nearly 10%.
Driven by technology in general and the internet in particular.
Traders and investors shell-shocked.
Your friends are on their knees begging you to pull your money out, saying things like it's time to take your profits before you lose everything. But you hold strong and things start going back up until you're hit with...
It was one of the most profound events in generations with huge consequences.
Little did you know, you're in for the ride of a lifetime until...
The global economy will contract by 3% this year, the worst downturn since the Great Depression.
Surely this is the end of the stock market. But as things reopened, the market soared 27% from its low, setting new records. What a comeback. Something I didn't mention is the guy that invested his money in 1985 was actually me when I turned 18 years old. The average return over this time period was 11.23% per year. So if I'd have only invested $250 per month during this time, then I would have made $1,841,521.08. That's a return of over 6,000%. But between us, I invested a lot more than that. So now you understand the power of investing, I think it's time to jump into the details. Honestly, it's amazing how many people talk about investing, but don't actually show you how to do it. So I'm going to quickly walk you through how to invest in stocks on your phone. Of course, remember, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just the way I do it. And before you do any of this, make sure you have an emergency fund of 3 to 5 months of living expenses. The first thing on our list is to set up an account. A lot of people get stuck at this stage as there's a lot of different investment platforms out there and also different types of accounts. But trust me, it's much more simple than it first seems, especially now you can do it all online. When I first started investing, I had to phone up the stockbroker every time I wanted to buy a stock. Let's use the Trading 212 app. I'm going to be using my son's account as my account's pretty messy as it has a bunch of free shares. He's actually been running an experiment on here for the last 3 months, but we'll talk about that in a bit. The account you open should be a tax advantaged one. This means you won't have to pay any unnecessary taxes. These are known as stocks and shares ISAs in the UK and Roth IRAs in America. I think the UK option's much better as you can invest up to £20,000 a year without paying capital gains tax on your profits, and you can take out your money whenever you want. In contrast, Americans have to wait until they're old and retired, and they have a much lower limit of $6,500 per year. Feel free to use whatever app you like. This is just one of my personal favorites. Next, we need to deposit some money in order to start investing. Most apps make it pretty easy to deposit money. We just have to click these 3 lines and then select deposit funds. As you can see, this brings up a screen with lots of different options like instant bank transfer, debit card, and what we're going to use, Apple Pay. Let's just put in 400 so we can invest in some stocks together. Feel free to invest whatever you feel comfortable doing. Curtis, I'm going to need your face for the phone.
All right, hang on.
This next step is super important. getting some free stocks. Since I was planning to talk about Trading 212 anyway, I reached out to them to see if they would be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed, and they're offering a free stock worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they create an account. Plus you can get more free shares by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. So don't waste your invites and invite brokies. And also don't worry if you've already opened an account within the last 10 days. You can still use the promo code Tilbury in the app and receive your free share. Right. Now we need to plan a winning strategy. The first thing we need to remember is that investments go up and down, so it's very hard to pick winning individual stocks. That's why I prefer to invest in all of them. You probably think this sounds a bit crazy, but stay with me. I love listening to music. I'm a big Deacon Blue and Queen fan myself. But whatever you like, if you've ever listened to the radio or used Spotify, you'll be familiar with the music charts. The better the songs perform in sales and downloads, the higher up they go in the charts. On the other hand, if a song drops in popularity and sales, then it drops out of the charts. This is almost exactly the same as investing in an index fund. All you have to do is switch out the songs for companies. Let's take the S&P 500 for example. This is a list of around 500 of the largest public companies in the USA. The big dogs being Amazon, Google, Apple and Tesla. And just like the music charts, if a company does poorly, then they risk being removed from the list. Here's the cool part about an index fund. With just one click, you're not just investing in one or two companies, but in every single company on the list. So if one doesn't perform very well, your money's okay as you're spread across all of them. So how can we put this into practice? Well, we need to automate our long-term investments. Remember I said my son had been running a little experiment for the last 3 months on his account? Well, he's been investing £5 into the S&P 500 every day. Why £5? Because that's about the average price of a Starbucks coffee. Automating your investments like this is a great idea, as it means you can just set it and forget it. His portfolio is actually doing pretty well. As you can see in the green, his return so far is £36.46, and that's a return of 5.03%. Not bad for a little experiment. $1,000 per week. So today, I thought I'd walk you through each income stream, explain how I got started, and rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. This video is going to create future millionaires because after watching it, you'll have all the information you need to build multiple income streams and escape the traditional 9-to-5 life. First is my retail stores where I sell remote control planes, helicopters, cars and more. Many young people believe the only way to start their own store is by launching an online one. Now, I can see why people might think this because there are lower startup costs, a global customer base, and you have the flexibility to run the business from anywhere you like. But just because online stores are easier to start, it doesn't mean that physical stores are outdated or unachievable. I mean, just look at the amount of physical locations the Sidemen are opening up, from fried chicken shops to clothing stores. But Mark, starting a retail store requires a lot of money. You're basically saying to become rich, you already have to be rich. Disliked and unsubscribed. I understand it might seem that way, but when I started my store, I had hardly any money. I'd recently resigned from my job and dropped out of school with no qualifications to fall back on, so I simply had to make it work. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was easy for me because it really wasn't. I remember on the opening day of my first model shop, I put a sleeping bag in the back of the van because unless I made enough money on the day, I couldn't even afford to fill my car with fuel to get home. So how did I manage to start a shop with barely no money to my name? Well, I got funding, which is something you can do too. I know it sounds a bit complicated, but I took 3 simple steps. Step 1 is to write a business plan. I identified the perfect location for a shop, how I was going to attract customers, how much money I needed, how I was going to allocate that money, and finally, how much money I thought I could make. Back in the day, this was about as far as I could go without professional help, but now you can go one step further and find a free business plan template online to make your plan look as professional as possible. Step 2 is to do some customer research. You have to find a cheap way to test out if your business will actually work. So many people come up with a business plan and get so carried away with it that they don't actually ever consider going out and asking their potential customers what they think. This step is all about going out into the real world and gathering actual data. Trust me, doing this will save you so much money and potential headaches. You may even find you need to adapt your plan. I did this without even knowing it, as I worked in someone else's model shop on the weekend. This allowed me to talk to customers and find issues within the business that I could fix in mine. You can also walk around with a clipboard asking people's opinions, like they probably force you to do on school trips. But if you can get a part-time job in a similar business, then it can prove to be the best customer research opportunity ever. Step 3 is to get funding. I got my initial money in the form of a bank loan. It was very hard to secure, but I eventually got it by knocking on enough bank managers' doors until someone believed in me. Nowadays, there are so many alternative funding options available, such as crowdfunding. If you have a solid business idea, you can use platforms like Kickstarter to raise money by pitching your concept directly to potential customers. Right, time to rank this income stream out of 5 stars in my 3 core categories. Firstly, how much time does managing a retail store take? I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5 stars because, I'm not going to lie, it takes a lot of your time at the start. However, with that being said, as time goes by, you can afford to take a step back, especially when you start scaling it by hiring staff and implementing systems that can run whilst you're not there. Now I probably spend less than a couple of hours a week actually in this store. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'm going to rate this 4 out of 5 stars because although the initial stage of, how do I get the money is tricky to overcome, you don't have to do it all alone. And there are so many investors, loans and crowdfunding methods that can get you there, especially if they see the potential in your business. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? You know what? For this one, I'm going to say 5 out of 5 stars. If you're really passionate about what you're selling and you know the ins and outs of the niche, then you'll sell. To be a top seller, you have to make the customer buy into not just the products, but into you. Second is my own brand and product range, which I manufacture in China and distribute all over the world. When I was younger, the idea of seeing my own products on the shelves of other shops seemed just like a dream. I would sit in school staring at my drawings of model aeroplane designs, thinking, how can I make this happen? I always thought you had to have millions of dollars, niche connections, or a huge team behind you to make it a reality. I was wrong. Little did I know, years later, I'll be sat clutching onto my designs I drew as a kid on a plane heading to China. So how did I go from a kid with a dream on a piece of paper to a successful brand owner? Well, I took 3 key steps that you can replicate to get started with your own brand. Step 1 is picking a niche. Back in my day, model aeroplanes were all the rage. If people weren't watching the latest competitions or going crazy for new designs, they were busy collecting kits and accessories to customize their own. It had what's known now as a cult following. You need to identify a popular niche with lasting appeal, not just a fleeting fad. I'd personally start by following Instagram pages and joining in on the conversations. You need to know what the people in this niche are passionate about. Also try to understand their challenges to use to your advantage. Step 2. Keep an eye on trends. Take a brand like Represent, for example. I mean, it just got so popular out of nowhere and ended up on everyone's Christmas list. They recognized the growing trend for oversized clothing within the fashion industry and quickly capitalized on it with their oversized hoodies and tracksuit sets. This is where they really made a name for themselves. It's interesting because if you look at them now, they're moving more towards fitness gear with their 24/7 range because they're following new and rising trends. Here in the UK, fitness has become so popular with 74% of people owning fitness products. I mean, even the nightclubs are shutting because young people aren't drinking as much. It's clear that Represent have spotted this trend and created a new clothing range to meet the demand. You should aim to do the same in your chosen niche. Step 3 is creating a culture. If you can build a real community around your products, that is the secret sauce. It's not just about selling stuff anymore. People feel like they want to be part of something bigger. This way your brand sticks around because customers are all in, not just for what you're selling, but for the whole vibe. My son Curtis recently participated in the Super 10K Spartan race, which was filled with obstacles like monkey bars, rope climbs, and even swimming through icy water. It's become more than just a race. It's now become a movement where people go to test their limits and meet like-minded individuals. They've built a genuine community with around 1.5 million people participating last year. There's even been a wedding ceremony on the start line with the whole wedding party completing the course. So maybe have a think about how you can do this too in your own niche. Now, onto the rankings. Firstly, how much time does creating your own brand take? I'd say a 2 out of 5 for this one, because you're going to have to put in the work. You'll have to post online consistently to build the audience, keep up to date with research, and also keep up to date with trends so you can ride with them instead of drowning in them. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'd give this one a 3 out of 5 because you do need some initial capital, but once sales start rolling in, growth can happen quickly and you can then reinvest that money to fuel further expansion. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? I'd rate this 4 out of 5 stars if you've completed steps 1 and 2, and 5 out of 5 if you've achieved all 3. Once you've built hype and people are talking about your brand on social media, there's no reason you can't easily make $100 per week. Third is my eBay store, where I buy stock from failing shops and sell it online. Not to toot my own horn, but I made quite a name for myself in the model industry, and people started asking me to help them with their failing businesses. With all my experience and knowledge, I thought to myself, why not? Before I knew it, it became a side hustle. I remember the first time I visited a struggling store and offered them a lump sum in exchange for their stock. I then listed the items on eBay in my spare time, and I was completely shocked by the results. I managed to triple my money, so I just kept going and bought lots more failing businesses. Before long, I ended up with this warehouse full of gear behind me. Now my team just lists these items on eBay for me. It's become a huge part of my business, and I never imagined my little side hustle could transform into something as big as this. I know what you're thinking, but Mark, I don't have enough money to just buy failing businesses. How can I do this too? Well, here's my best advice for getting started with eBay. Step 1 is to identify businesses run by older people. The world has changed a lot and the traditional methods aren't as effective anymore. That's just how the world is. It just keeps on changing and you've got to change with it if you want to stay on top. Unfortunately, some older business owners are just left in the dust. This is where you come in. Step 2 is to approach these older owners and ask if you can try and offload the stock they can't sell, then list and sell it on eBay in exchange for a commission. This way, they get rid of their dead stock and you can earn some extra cash. It's a win-win. Over time, you'll be able to build up profits, and this is where the game changes. Step 3 is to use your profits to start buying directly from your own supplier. This is a huge turning point because you'll be in control of the products you offer, the pricing, and the customer experience. This gives you far more flexibility for profits and enables you to build up a strong reputation as a seller. This is crucial for scaling this side hustle into a real business. Okay, once again, it's time to rank it in my categories. Firstly, how much time does running an eBay shop take? Well, I'd say this is a 3 out of 5, if not a 4, because you don't need to come up with any of the products or designs. You're simply selling someone else's stock. If you've got things running smoothly, then there's no reason why you can't be selling in your sleep. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'm going to rate this a 5 out of 5 because you can actually get started with $0, especially if you're selling stuff for a commission like I recommended. It's really accessible and a great way to get stuck into business and learn on the go. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? I'm going to rate this a 5 out of 5 because all you have to do is sell 50 items with a $2 profit on each and boom, you've made an extra $100 that week. Fourth is the stock market, where I invest my money and let it grow over time. I'm no financial advisor, but in my humble opinion, this is something everyone should be doing because without investing, your money is losing value due to inflation. Over the last 60 years, this averages out to be a loss of 3.8% per year. So if your money isn't growing by more than this on its own, then you're getting poorer by the second. In a perfect world, you'd have a savings account that provides an average return of 8 to 10% every year, so that you can both beat inflation and earn some profit. Unfortunately, such savings accounts don't exist. However, you can achieve returns like this by investing in the stock market. A stock is a small part of a company, and when you buy it, you become a shareholder. When you're a shareholder, there are 2 ways you can make money. The first way is if the price of the stock goes up during the time you own it, then you can sell it for more than you paid. The second way is receiving dividends. Dividends are regular payments to shareholders. Now, not all stocks pay dividends, but if they do, this means you can receive money without ever selling your stock. You can start investing from your phone. My son has actually been investing £5 a day for over a year now on the Trading 212 app instead of buying a morning Starbucks coffee. It's a bit of an experiment, and as you can see, that small investment is now worth £1,783, which is a profit of £276 or $359 for all my American subscribers. That's a return of over 18%. Of course, past results are no guarantee of future returns, but that's not bad for a little experiment. To set something like this up, all you have to do is select pies and then click the plus button. Now you can select whatever stocks you want to include in your pie. For this demonstration, let's just pick the same investment as my son, this S&P 500 index fund. Now, let's tap add to pie and then the arrow button. Right, tap next and then auto invest. This value projection is really awesome as it shows you how much money you could make based on the historical averages. Of course, when you invest, you can get back less than you invested, as investments can rise and fall, but it's still a great way to get an idea of how much you could make based on data-backed projections. I mean, say we invested £250 per month for 31 years. This says that you'll have only invested £94,250 and your portfolio could be worth £2.19 million. And if we expand this to 40 years, that could give you a portfolio worth of £8.63 million. That's over $10 million. Now, let's rank this income stream out of 5 stars in my 3 core categories. Firstly, how much time does investing take? I'd rate this 5 stars out of 5, as all you have to do is download an investing app such as Trading 212, deposit some money and start investing. Since I was planning to talk about Trading 212 anyway, I reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in sponsoring this portion of the video. They agreed and are offering a free stock worth up to £100 to anyone that uses the code Tilbury when they sign up and fund their account with as little as £1 or €1. Plus you can get more free shares by inviting your friends. Both of you will get a free share as long as they fund their account. Also, don't worry if you've opened an account in the last 10 days. You can still use the promo code Tilbury in the app and receive your free share. Secondly, how much money do you need? I'd rate this a 5 stars out of 5 again. As I've shown with my son's experiment, you can start with as little as the price of a Starbucks coffee a day or even less. Because of the way compound interest works, it's much better to get started sooner rather than later, so that time is on your side, even if you can only put aside a little bit every month. Thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? This will have to be a 2.5 out of 5 because it's very challenging to make this kind of money at the start. As you can see by this graph, net worth really starts to accelerate after the first 100k. For me, making $100 a week from investments is now the easiest thing in the world. So who knows, by the time you reach my age, you could be making far more than $100 a day through investing. Fifth is my residential real estate. I rent these out to families. When I was younger, I wanted to build an income source that would constantly bring in money even if I decided to stop working. So I did some research and that's when I bought my first residential rental property. It's actually this one and it's in an up and coming area with great transport links to London and good local schools. But the truth is, I regretted the investment as soon as I bought it. The reality was, it needed a lot more fixing up than I'd initially thought and I just tied up a big amount of my money. But I was committed now and I needed to make it work. So I spent every free moment down at the house fixing everything myself to save costs. Now looking back, this was hands down one of the best decisions I've ever made. It's over doubled in value and along with my other properties has given me a steady income for years. Look, I'm not going to lie, getting into real estate usually takes a big chunk of change to start, but there is a good way to get started without actually buying any property yourself. It's called deal sourcing. This involves you sitting at a computer, finding deals, and then sending them on to real estate investors like me and receiving a commission. I'm always on the lookout for great deals, and so are thousands of other real estate investors. So here are the 3 simple steps you can take right now to start this. Step 1, educate yourself. Learn about the local real estate market, property values, and investment strategies. Become obsessed, watch videos, and read plenty of books. Step 2, build a network. Connect with real estate agents, property managers, and other investors. Attend local real estate meetups and join online forums to expand your connections. Step 3, start finding deals. Look for undervalued properties or motivated sellers through online listings, auctions, or by driving around neighborhoods. When you find a good deal, present it to investors in your network for a finder's fee. Even if you don't plan to deal source forever, this experience will prove invaluable when you eventually become a real estate investor yourself. You'll already possess all the necessary knowledge. In my view, it's a win-win situation. You're learning and earning at the same time. So it's time to rank this income stream. Firstly, how much time does residential real estate take? This is a 3 out of 5, as it does take time to find good deals. And if you're the investor, you might need to put in some work to fix up the property at the beginning. Secondly, how much money do you need? If you're deal sourcing, then this is a 5 out of 5 stars, as you don't need any money to get started. However, if you're investing, then you'll need a significant amount of money to buy the property and also maintain it. Take it from me, being a landlord isn't always easy. I remember when I dealt with all my properties personally, I'd get called up for the craziest of things. Once I even found myself fixing a roof tile during a major storm. And thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? This is a 5 out of 5, as it's relatively easy to make $100 a week. If you're deal sourcing, once you've learnt the ropes, just one finder's fee can earn you thousands in commissions. For investors, you can generate income from both rental payments and property value appreciation. Sixth is my commercial real estate. I rent these warehouses to different businesses. This one is just about to go on the market. This is something I explored later in life after I'd invested in the stock market and residential real estate, and I recommend you do the same. I was interested in boosting my cash flow, and you can typically earn more per month rented to businesses rather than families. However, my warehouses are unlikely to increase in value at the same rate as my residential properties. I'm going to keep this one short and skip to the ratings. First, how much time does commercial real estate take? I'll give this a 3 out of 5 stars. Honestly, it can be relatively hands-off once you've got the tenants in place. However, setting it up does take time, from finding good warehouse space to making sure it's ready to lease out. Once you're up and running, it only really requires you to manage the tenant relationship. Secondly, how much money do you need? This is a 1 out of 5 stars, as commercial real estate isn't cheap and upfront costs can be high. However, financing options and partnerships are often available for this kind of investment if you're not ready to put in all the money yourself. And thirdly, how easy is it to make $100 per week? This is a 4 out of 5 stars, as the potential is definitely there, with most commercial leases bringing in well above $100 per week. Once leased,